And Nobesuthu, just tell us about what the DA is saying in laying the criminal complaint at this very moment. What was the threshold for them to say it's not only that irregularities have happened in this contract, but actually Zweli Mkhize should be held criminally liable for those irregularities?
Well, tell us, those criminal charges have been laid here at the Cape Town Central Police Station. And just to get to those nitty-gritties, I am joined by the Shadow Minister of Health, Zweli Mkhize, who's just going to be taking us through those charges. Now, Zweli, earlier on you were inside. Just take us through to those charges.
Yes, so good afternoon and good afternoon to your viewers. We have, as of this morning, laid criminal charges against Dr. Zweli Mkhize and the Director General of the Department of Health, Dr. Sandile Buthelezi. When it relates to Dr. Mkhize, we've laid charges against the Prevention and Combating of Corruption Act, specifically looking at 3 sections. But ultimately what those 3 sections seeks to speak to is the fact that political office bearers are prevented and prohibited from awarding government contracts for personal gain. And considering that there's mounting evidence and reports which have been coming out and coming to light in the last several weeks of Minister getting upgrades in his home, donations being made to his son, we're of the view here that there's a case to be answered for. And we've laid a similar charge against Dr. Buthelezi in terms of being in contravention of the PFMA. We are of the view that the Act states explicitly that the DG is the accounting officer when it comes to awarding of government contracts, and that you cannot have a situation where there's political influence where that is concerned. And if the DG had allowed that to happen, then he too has a case to answer.
And the President did say that the SIU is investigating those allegations of corruption cases, but you're saying that he still should be liable.
Look, it's quite important to note that there's obviously a difference between the work that the SIU will be doing and is doing, and we welcome the fact that they have said that they're going to be expediting this investigation and hopefully releasing a report by the end of June. But ultimately, SAPS too has a role to play in terms of looking at the criminality of whether or not there's a criminal charge or there's a criminal case to be answered for. And from our preliminary analysis of the facts before us, we think that certainly is. And so these two things don't cancel each other out, nor are they mutually exclusive. And so we're of the view that they can go on concurrently. And if the two institutions at some point need to collaborate, then that's what a criminal justice system should do.
And you're also complaining about the fact that the President is not taking action because various organizations have been calling for the stepping down of Dr. Mkhize while these investigations are ongoing.
The President has been absolutely disappointing with this entire situation. As somebody who is said to be committed to combating corruption, he seriously hasn't followed suit with his actions. Because ultimately, and as he said in the House yesterday, he was waiting for the SIU to come up with its investigation and to conclude its investigation. But our view is this, that it's ultimately impossible to have a leader of our COVID-19 response having allegations hanging over his head like this when he continues to lead this response. The minister needs to be suspended pending the outcome of the investigation. If he is cleared by the SIU and the SAPS, then the minister can take up his role. But if he's not cleared, then he needs to be held absolutely accountable. But what you cannot have is both a player and a referee sitting at a department when the department is being investigated and he being the center of it.
And lastly, Zweli, we've seen the DA and other parties opening charges or cases against officials, but they seem to be not going anywhere. So what is your response to the fact that it's one of those antics by the DA?
Well, look, I mean, Nobesuthu, it would be a sad day in our democracy if we were to give up on our institutions. These institutions are here for the use of the public, for the use as guaranteed by our Constitution. So we cannot give up on SAPS and we cannot give up on various institutions. We have to continue reporting these matters to these institutions for investigation. We have to follow up. If you look at the spy tapes, it took over a decade for the matter to get to court. But what is important is that as the official opposition, we must never neglect our station of holding government to account and ringing the alarm when things are wrong. And we have to do whatever it takes to make sure that these cases aren't thrown out on the basis of political influence. But to give up on our institutions because we say these things don't go anywhere would be a grave mistake.
Thank you very much. Well, Tulas, that was the Shadow Minister of Health, Siviwe Gwarube, saying that they basically want government to take accountability, and those officials who've been accused or who are facing charges of corruption, they should be brought to books.
Yeah. All right, thank you for that. That's eNCA's Nobesuthu Hejana there, reporting on the DA laying a criminal complaint against the embattled Health Minister Zweli Mkhize.